Back to the Future number 26. iPhone Extra Special is the name of this episode tonight. And I guess that shouldn't be too. It's not. It's probably working now. You know, it just wouldn't be the Mac to the Future Go Livecast if something didn't get screwed up. Yeah. Yeah. So I'll say it again. Hey, Cletus. Hi. Great to see you here again today. Jai Veswani. Did I say that right? I hope I did. Thanks for being here. Will Young, hi. Brian Monroe, hi. Who else we got? We got Warren Sklar. He says he hears nothing. Nothing. Well, it sounds back on again. I'm not using OBS tonight. I'm trying just Broadcaster again. And I kind of forgot how it worked, which is why the sound went out. I actually muted the sound myself, which I really shouldn't do, but I did because hearing it back with that slight delay is very, very annoying. And I forgot that all I really have to do is just turn off the little headphone thingy, and that would have taken care of it. But no, I actually silenced the microphone because that's the kind of thing that I do in a live show because sometimes I'm an idiot. Anyway, got a couple other things going on here. I created this little thing here that you see there on the side. It's got all the various voting buttons, and you guys can see it as well as I can. My comments are right here. This is the thing I like about Just Broadcaster is that a lot of the tools that I want to use that I need to keep track of while I'm doing the live cast, I can put right in front of me. I don't have to look over here at the Facebook page, and I can just keep everything centralized here. Things that I don't like about it, there's a couple things, but I'm willing to give it another shot, and we shall see how it goes. Hopefully, that will be the absolute worst of it. And of course, this is something else that I like. I can do these like custom lower thirds, and I can also do some scrolling text fun stuff. And yeah, but you guys don't care about any of this. You actually want to. I gave you 6 angry faces with nothing. I don't know why it didn't work. Oh no, there it goes. It finally showed up. It's just a little slow, much like me. Before I talk about the Apple event that happened on Tuesday, I did want to mention this because it's really changed the way that people use iTunes with their iOS devices, and that's the updated version of iTunes that just came out, 12.7. The big change with 12.7 is that your app management for your various iOS devices is now bye-bye. So things like applications that Apple has either removed or that developers have removed, you will no longer have access to unless you have saved them somehow. So something to keep in mind as you go forward. These applications do have a file format if you can find them, and you may want to consider looking for them in your backups for your iOS devices and saving them separately if there's something geeky that you want to do along those lines. Okay, so we're going to move on from that, and we're going to talk about the Apple event that happened last Tuesday. They had it in the Steve Jobs Theater on the new Apple campus, and honestly, it was really kind of an awesome event. I really liked it. I thought that the The auditorium itself was well put together. There weren't any huge technical glitches as far as the presentation goes. Of course, they had some problems when they were doing the facial recognition, but that wasn't really the fault of the venue, but of whoever set up the devices ahead of time. But let's talk about the stuff that was there. They started off. They talked about the new Apple Watch, the Series 3. Now I have. Let me bring it out here. I've got a Series 2, and I'm pretty happy with it. I really didn't have any intention on getting an Apple Watch at all because I just didn't see the point of them. But through an odd series of events, someone I knew bought one, and they didn't want it anymore and gave it to me at a really, really good price. And I really couldn't say no. So I ended up with an Apple Watch Series 2. The big change with the Series 3, of course, is that they've added LTE, which will share the same number that you have on your phone. The part that kind of pisses me off about this is that the carriers are going to charge $10 a month for this, and they really, really shouldn't. And what I'm kind of hoping is that one of them is going to jump that fence and say, we're not going to charge. I mean, it's the same number. It's the same number. And chances are it's going to use the same tower to talk to both your phone and your watch. So who cares? It's not like this is going to be a huge extra expense for the carriers, but this is just another example of, them taking something and charging for it because they think that they can. And it'll take a little time, but I'm pretty sure that someone eventually will not charge for it, and then the other ones will jump on that too. As far as pricing goes, it's not too out of line with what we saw before. There's a slight increase. The Series 3 aluminum with GPS is $329 for the 38 millimeter, $359 for the 42 millimeter. With LTE, that jumps up to about $400 for the 38 and $429 for the 42. The stainless steel bodied Series 3 is $599 for the 32 and $649 for the 38 millimeter, $649 for the 42 millimeter, and that does include LTE. The stainless Milanese Silver, of course, GPS and LTE, $699 and $749, and the Milanese Black with GPS and LTE, of course, $749 for the 38 millimeter and $799 for the 42 millimeter. The Nike Aluminum Series 3 is pretty much along lines as the aluminum one, so those are the same prices. $328, $399 for the 38, $359 and $429 for the 42 millimeter. And of course, there's the Hermes edition with stupid pricing for a watch band that costs over $1,000. And there's also the watch edition with the ceramic case that also has stupid pricing for over $1,000. And you can still get, now Series 2 has gone away, so the one I have, you can't get that one anymore. You can still get the Series 1 for $249. So if you don't want to spend a whole lot of money for an Apple Watch, you can still get the Series 1. Over here in the comments, Cletus says he has a first gen. If you have a first gen, unless you need LTE, I don't see any reason to get a new one. They're still pretty good. Frank says the thing he didn't like about the event is that he doesn't have any money. You should get some money so that you can buy those things, Frank. Ed Eisen, yeah, that was the. See, that's one of the cool things about the Just Broadcaster program is like I can do that crawl on the bottom of the screen as well as a few other things, and the controls for it are pretty easy. What else we got? No fake news. That's right. No fake news here on Mac to the Future or Mac to the Future Go. Um, let's see. On top, Ed asks, on top of the extra charge, what about all the excess data usage this might use? And then the carriers will hose you more on data coverages. If you're, I mean, what is the big potential use case for a watch that has LTE, that where you don't need, it doesn't need to be paired up with your phone? Um, the only thing I can think of off the top of my head is things like you're in a meeting, and I know that where I work, I can't take cell phones in, but nobody's going to say anything about a watch. Um, if you're exercising, you're going on a run, whatever, working out, you don't necessarily want to have a great big bulky phone, but if you can get your workout music through your watch, attached to some Bluetooth earphones, then yeah, maybe that is something that you want to do. However, remember that unlike the phone, which can have a lot of storage, your watch has very, very little storage, which means it's going to stream everything, which means you could potentially use a lot more data. But I guess it's really going to depend on your use case and what you would actually use a watch like this for. The nicer watches are only available in LTE, which is stupid too. I Warren, I get what you're saying. However, for the people that are going to spend $1,000 or more on an Apple Watch with a ceramic case and a Hermes band or some other stupid crap like that that's going to jack up the price of the phone, of the watch, I don't think they care. It gets to the point, if you have to think about how much you're going to spend on an Apple Watch, and you look at the price of an Apple Watch with a fancy band or whatever, and you say, ooh, I don't know if I want to spend that much, chances are you shouldn't get it, because it's, it's like that stupid gold version that they had with the Series Zero that was like $10,000. I don't know anybody that would be willing to spend $10,000 on a piece of consumer electronics that goes on your wrist, especially one that didn't even really have a proven track record at the time that came out. Frank asks, should I send you my Addy? Yes. I don't even know what that means, but I say yes. So Scott Carlson says he's going to get one. Scott, let us know which one you're going to get. But let's go back to the event. The next thing they talked about was the Apple TV. Now, I have two Apple TVs. I have the first gen little square black one. I think that was a Series 3 or Edition 3 or whatever. And then when the one came out that was a little bit thicker, that had the memory, that had a few other gewgaws with it, I got one of those. So now I got two. I've got the old one, 2 years old, is downstairs, and the new one with all the apps is upstairs. However, neither one of my TVs are 4K. So with, the big addition for the Apple TV being that it's basically outputting 4K using their new high efficiency video codec that reduces file sizes for creating, saving, and streaming, so that they don't get too crazy for your Apple TV. If you don't have a 4K TV, there's probably not much difference that you would see from the the older one and the brand new one. So until I get like a 4K TV, I'm gonna hold off. I the high defs are fine. Let's see. Brian Monroe says there are some Apple customers that price is really not an issue. It's all about getting the top of the line, and all of the Apple hardware is not that much money for some people. That's very, very true. Captain Spaulding, October is around the corner. It is. Ed Eisen at Warren. That's why I'm perfectly content with his series 2. Frank Petrie says, damn address where you can send me money. Okay, see, I'm missing something here, Frank. What am I sending you money for? Sean Durkin. He can carry his phone with him most places. Yeah, yeah. So having to spend extra money monthly and upfront to me just isn't worth it. Yeah, me either. One teacher at my school makes us leave phones in the lockers. Yeah. Where I work, we're not supposed to take our phones into certain areas too, and I'm not going to go into that, but I understand the reasoning behind it. And if you're in school, yeah, I can kind of get that too. But he's still within Bluetooth range. He agrees with me on the Hermes and ceramic ones. If you're spending $1K on a watch, you probably don't really care about the extra prices. Woot, Ethernet gigabit. Cletus, I don't get it. Brian Moreau says he's perfectly content with his Series 0 42 mil for now. Me too. But before we get off the Apple TV, one thing really, really quick that Apple is doing that I applaud them for. If you have bought high definition content through iTunes, then all of that high definition content at no charge, according to what we've been reading, is going to be updated to the new HEVC codec standard, which means that if you do have a 4K streaming box or 4K 4K Apple TV, then all of your content will be 4K. That's not all of it, but all the content that you've bought that is high definition will be upscaled to 4K. Frank says that you said I should get some money so I can buy some of the new stuff. Yeah, but Frank, you have to get your own money. Your own money. I've got my own bad Apple habits to deal with. Last thing before the break, because of course the second part is going to be all about the iPhones. For those of you who have seen the presentation, they did this whole thing on animated emojis, which honestly, when they got up on stage and they first started talking about it, I was kind of like, really? Have we gotten to the point where animated emojis is like something that has to be worried about? And I was thinking along the lines of like animated GIFs, where it does this one little thing and it just repeats that over and over and over again. But no, the animated emojis, you can actually, for the ones that they have, and I imagine that there'll be more as time goes on, and I imagine as well that you'll be able to buy, extra cool special ones. You can record messages using these animated emojis, and it more or less follows the contours of your face and follows the contours of your mouth as you're speaking. And then you can send a message with an animated emoji to, well, obviously someone else that also is on an iPhone, and they'll get these cool animated messages. And I thought it was kind of neat. I know it's silly, obviously, but I kind of liked it. Before we go, let me take a quick look here. See, all the old Apple TVs are 10100. Yes. So the new Apple TV is gigabit Ethernet. Well, that would make sense for the file sizes. So I imagine if it's streaming only, or if it's Wi-Fi only, then it's going to slow it down a little bit before, from the time that you hit the play button to the time that it has built up enough of a buffer for video content and starts to actually play. The animated emoji movie was terrible. Yes, it was. And on that note, everyone, please stand by to stand by. And we will be right back. This is Private Eye Macintosh, and I'm here to tell you about a book written about me and my search for the Maltese Cube. Yes, it's a fine book. I think you should get it. Quiet, you. It combines technology, Mac trivia, action, murder, suspense. Oh, just tell them where to get it. I'll get to that. Romance, film noir detective fiction. I can't stand it anymore. It's called The Maltese Cube, and it was written by my Mac writer and podcaster Guy Searle. Find it on Amazon. It's only $2.99 and coming soon to the Apple's iBook store. Don't forget, it's The Maltese Cube and so inexpensive. You know you're not in it, right? I'm in the next one, right? Sure thing, Louie. You know, this could be the start of a beautiful friendship. Get The Maltese Cube on Amazon and soon in the iBook store. You see, it's supposed to do like a fade, and it's not doing it, and I don't know why. I love this program. I love some of the things that it does, but sometimes it's just so inconsistent with some of its features. But it was also relatively inexpensive as compared to Wirecast. And of course, if you can go totally free with OBS. But that's not what I'm here to talk about. What I'm here to talk about right now was the main event for the evening or the afternoon. Well, wait, hold on. No, it was morning. It was 10 o'clock in the morning when they started. And that was the iPhone 8. Of course, that was not the main event, but it was the first one they talked about. It's the new iPhone. You got the 8 and you got the iPhone 8 Plus. No big changes in sizing, as the regular will still be 4.7. And the Plus will be 5.5 inches. 3 colors available, silver, space gray, and gold. 25% louder speakers. Yay, my speakers in my phone will be even more capable of annoying everyone around me. Wear headphones. Bluetooth 5 LTE Advanced. Now, I thought this was kind of cool, though, you know, this is another one of those things where people that are Android fans will just sit there and go, oh, we've had wireless charging for a really, really long time. I don't care when you got wireless charging. I don't care. But now the iPhone has it too. I still don't care. I don't care that the iPhone has wireless charging. It uses the Q standard, which is the same as what most of the other Android phones with wireless charging uses. Both the 8 and the 8 Plus still have a Touch ID sensor. The screens, the 4.7 has 326 pixels per inch, 5.5, 401 pixels per inch. As far as the hardware goes, and again, wireless charging, yay. But the iPhone 8 has a new processor. It's the A11 Bionic with 6 cores, 2 of which are high performance and 4 are power efficient. It's supposed to be 30% faster than the A10 without a significant hit on battery life, as Apple claims that the 8 and the 8 Plus has the same battery life as the 7 and the 7 Plus. The camera is 12 megapixels with 1 lens for the 8 and 2 for the 8 Plus with an aperture of 1.8 and 2.8. Video capture is in 4K up to 60 frames a second and up to 240 frames a second for 1080p, depending on how you're recording. Now, one of the things that they're talking about is if you record in slow motion, you need more frames per second in order to do a slow motion effect. So 240 frames per second is like 9 to 10 times slower than regular. So in the time I go like this in 240 frames, it'd be like this. There it goes away. Pricing for the iPhone 8 64 gig for $699, 256 gigs of storage for $849. The iPhone 8 Plus 64 gig $799, 256 gig $949. And honestly, one of the things that kind of disappointed me about this phone and this announcement was that they're still kind of being stingy on memory, internal storage. At this point, at these prices, I don't have a problem with the high end capping at 256, but shouldn't the low end be 128? You know, that's my take on it. I think that considering that you can't use external storage, at least not easily. I've got some Wi-Fi and Bluetooth enabled hard drives that sort of work if I need more storage, but it's kind of a pain in the ass. And no, I'm not saying that Apple should put in an SD card slot. I'm not saying that, but they could be a little more generous on the low end with storage. Well, Frank asks, what do you need 256 gigabytes for on an iPhone? Video content. Right away, video content. Audio content. I can use an iPhone to record audio and video interviews and things like that. Boy, at tech shows. And that can take up a lot of space. I know that I have a 128 gig iPad Pro, and there'll be times when, along with a couple of movies, that it can get a little crowded when I want to start doing some video editing. Warren says that there should be a 64, 128, 256 option for the X and the 8. I don't know. I think that I'll get to it in a second, but Apple now has a lot of phones in their lineup. And I'll talk about that in just a little bit. The one thing that Tim Cook does really, really well, there's a lot of things that he does well, but one of them is supply chain. One of them is keeping the amount of stuff that's available in the pipeline ready to sell. He keeps that pretty tight. And for those who know retail, you don't want to have a lot of stock on hand. Having stock on hand costs you money. Having enough stock on hand to sell to the people that want products ABC means that you're making more money. So I kind of get why he's keeping the number of models available somewhat limited. Let's see here. Brian Monroe says he disagrees with me, as iOS with iCloud does a great job of working with less memory, so not everybody needs a 256 gig model. That's very true, Brian. But what happens if you want to watch a movie? It's in iTunes. You've purchased it. It's in iTunes. But you're not near Wi-Fi. All you have is cellular. You can't download that movie. It won't let you. So, that's why having more storage sometimes can be better. 256 gig model makes sense on the new one, 4K 60 frames per second, bound to take up some serious space. That's true. That's true, Sean. Music isn't always available to be streaming on a phone. He likes to keep his music local. That's from Warren. And Pandora still has Ed, so that works well as long as you can have a signal. I mean, I'm on T-Mobile, and there's lots of times when I'll look down at my phone and it says no signal, which sucks. But it's also one of the less expensive plans, and usually that doesn't happen. Let's move on to the last thing that they really talked about, which was the iPhone X. The iPhone 10. So there's no iPhone 9. 9! Right away, as I looked at this phone, there's no Touch ID sensor or physical button to initiate Touch ID. To open and all other related functions is done through facial recognition, which failed. Who was that? Craig Federici that failed on? Now, Apple is not the first phone to use facial recognition. There was a Samsung phone that came out, last year, I think it was, and right away it was discovered that you could take a picture of the person whose phone it belonged to, hold it up to the camera, and you could open the phone. The camera was fooled by a picture. Now, in this case, with the Apple iPhone 10, in theory, now, nobody has played around with these too much yet outside of Apple, but in theory, that shouldn't happen. And I'll tell you why. You've seen that there's pretty much no bezel on these phones. There's a thin strip across the top that has your carrier, your Wi-Fi signal strength, and battery life. And then right in the very middle, you've got a camera, you've got the microphone, and a few other things, this little thin black strip. Now, the camera that's there, the front-facing camera, it also has what's being called IR depth. Now, what this does is it basically takes 30,000 dots and throws that at your face as you're holding the phone right in front of you. Now, you might say, okay, so what? Big deal. 30,000 dots on your face. How is that going to keep it from being, not being fooled by a picture? Well, because it uses depth as one of its fields for comparing your face to the face that it has on file to open or do whatever it is that you want the phone to do. So let me turn sideways here. As I turn sideways, you can see I've got a contour on my forehead. I've got a contour on my nose. I've got a contour on my lips. I've got a contour on my ears. Your face is made up of contours. There's peaks and valleys and mountains and all kinds of stuff that's going on there. And this IR depth camera, basically, that's part of what it uses to map your face. So it looks at your face, your total face, not just the way it looks. And that should prevent, in theory, someone from just taking a picture of you, holding it up to your camera, and the camera or the phone being fooled into opening for that person. Now, according to Apple, you also need to have your eyes open. So if somebody gets a hold of your camera and is trying to force you to open it by holding it up to your face, if you keep your eyes closed or look away or, keep kind of moving around a little bit, it shouldn't be fooled. Now, even if they force you to keep your head still and force you to keep your eyes open, like Touch ID, you can still set it up to where you have to enter in your passcode to do whatever it is that you would typically use Touch ID or facial recognition for on your phone. So you do have, I mean, there is still some additional protection there. And with Touch ID, I think it was something like, as far as fingerprints go, how sensitive the scanner was for fingerprints. I believe it was a 1 in 30,000 chance that it could be fooled by somebody else's finger if it was, that close to what you have. With this new facial recognition software, Apple says there is a 1 in 1 million chance for two faces to be so identical that it could pass the ID system. It also learns as time goes on. So if you start to grow a beard or a mustache or whatever, and you're constantly using your phone, it's going to see that you have a beard, see you have a mustache. Now, my question is, what happens? Is it going to keep? Because, I mean, the facial recognition algorithm isn't going back to Apple. This is all being stored locally on your phone. So if you have a full beard and then you shave it off, is your phone now going to have a problem opening, or is it going to keep past facial recognition IDs and say, oh, well, this is just like this guy from before who didn't have a beard? Let's see. Frank Petrie says the whole face and nothing but the face. Will Young says, what if you have a twin? You could have an identical twin, but there would be enough differences in your face, especially as you get older, that just looking at a set of twins, you may not be able to tell the difference. But with that many dots hitting your face and mapping your face, it would be able to tell. As far as screen size goes, this is the biggest iPhone ever created at 5.8 inches. But the weird thing is the actual physical size of the phone fits right in between the 8 and the 8 Plus. And because that there's other than that little tiny top layer, there's no bezels on this phone. I don't know why I keep screwing that up. They're able to fit a larger screen in a smaller space. And speaking of the screen, it is a Super Retina display with a resolution of 2836 by 1025 and a pixel count of 2.7 million jammed into an OLED display. So impressive. The cameras are roughly the same as the ones that the iPhone 8 has. Now, because it doesn't have a home button, the everyday functions of quitting apps and invoking Siri, you kind of have to use different gestures. And there's a few of the buttons are now multi-purpose in order to do things like invoke Siri. For quitting apps, instead of hitting the home button, you basically, from one corner, I think it's the right-hand corner, you swipe up, and that makes the app go away. And, if you get the iPhone 10, there's going to be all kinds of new gestures, hand gestures that you're going to need to learn to use this phone. However, for people that don't get the 10 and get the 8 instead, chances are when this time comes around next year, you're going to have to learn the same ones, because I can't see Apple going forward with Touch ID past the 8. Don't see it happening. Frank Petrie says you're screwed if you get cosmetic surgery. Well, if you have to get cosmetic surgery, chances are you've got other issues to worry about than whether or not your iPhone 10 is going to work properly. Now, other than of course it also does wireless charging. Other than that, it's everything the iPhone 8 is and more. including the price. The 64 gigabyte iPhone uh, iPhone 10 is $999. So they got it just under that $1,000 mark. And the 256 gigabyte version is about $1,150. And of course, animated emojis for everybody, and wireless pad for charging multiple devices will be coming out next year. That was something that they kind of showed. Now, I've been kind of hard on wireless charging. At least with these phones, Apple didn't try to reinvent the wheel. And by that, I mean going their own way and coming out with their own type of charging as compared to a standard that's already been created. So you can take your watch, you can take your phone, you can take your iPad, anything that has wireless charging to any charging station and put them on there and they'll charge up. Now this pad that they put a phone down and it did a little animated wing ding, and then they put a watch down and the phone showed that it sees that the watch is now there, and then they put something else down. You could have it. The pad looks like it's big enough to charge up to 3 devices. And, they said it's coming out next year. They didn't really say anything as far as pricing goes. But in the meantime, if you're in an airport and they have a wireless charging station, you can drop your very, very expensive phone that someone could just come running by and steal onto this wireless charging pad. So, yay! Hooray for international standards. Brian says that most people who are going to get the iPhone 10 will get the 256 gigabyte model. Yeah, I would agree with that. I'm still on. My phone is a iPhone 6 Plus, not the S, not the 7, 6 Plus. So I'm, what is that now? 3 gens back from the latest and the greatest, and I don't typically care about these kinds of things. But when I get a phone or I get an iPad or I get a computer or, some other piece of tech, I'll typically keep that for a very, very long time. So if that's how you do your tech, then it makes no sense at all to go cheap, because all that's going to do is make it so that whatever it is you bought is incapable of doing what you want it to do much sooner than the higher end one. So, go bigger or stay home. If I'm going to get a new phone, and I haven't really decided yet, I will probably get either the 8 Plus 256 gig or the iPhone 10 256 gig. I don't see any point in getting the smaller ones. For some people, that's fine, and I'm not judging. Get the phone that you want. Get the phone that does what you want. And I think that is going to about do it for the evening. And I get the feeling that when I set this up, I'll see if I can do this on the fly. I don't think that I set up. Is that it? I don't think I did the closing theme for this. But I'm gonna. Oh wow. Okay. Phew, that was close. So, Sean Durkin says he wants the MacBooks to get wireless charging so you can put it on your desk and it starts charging. It'll really come in handy on the models with less USB-C connectors to leave them open. Yeah, that's actually not. I'm not really quite sure. I mean, would there be like one corner or the other that would be like the wireless charging point? And I guess the other thing is, how quickly will these things charge once you put them down, depending on what their power draw is. Computers take a much higher draw. Most computers take a much higher draw than, as far as power goes, than to phones or tablets. So, not sure exactly how all that would work, but we will see as time goes on. I think that is going to about do it for the evening. Thank you all so very, very much. Let's see, I got 6 people here watching me. That is great. Thank you. Thank you all. I really, really do appreciate it. And if you would like to get a hold of me, you can send me an email to guy@mttfgo.com. You can reach me, of course, in Facebook on the Mac to the Future page and Mac Parrot on Twitter. So you can send me a tweet. We have a Skype number that you can call. The number is 703-436-9501. I really need to set up one of these scrolling texts so that as I start to go through all this, it just goes across the bottom. I don't even have to talk about it, even though I probably would anyway. And I think that is, we are waiting for your, no, you'll be waiting a really, really long time. But that's going to do it for this evening. I shall see you next week. Thank you all for being here and have a great week. This is me spending time waiting for the live stream to catch up to the end of the credits, and it has. So I'm going to stop.